want to bring in John Miller, our chief intelligence and law enforcement analyst. You found out, John, that this was a soldier just a short time ago. We're learning this is an Army sergeant who is suspected of being the shooter in this case. Tell us a little bit about what you're learning.
Well, we're learning he is a member of the military, member of the Army, a sergeant, and he comes from Jacksonville, Florida. He may be assigned to that base, but as Josh Campbell was pointing out before, you know, there's a couple of ways to examine something like this when it's fluid. Is it an insider threat? Was it an outsider threat? If it was an outsider threat, how did they get on the base? How did they get through layers of security? How did they bring a weapon? Those things peel away now. We're looking at someone who was likely assigned to that base, as Juliet points out, likely knew the people who are the victims in this case. That's not certain, but it's just as likely that he had intended targets because of the limited number of victims here and the fact that apparently he was somebody who was authorized to be on that base. Question still to be resolved. What was the issue behind this? What is the motive? This is an individual who is known to law enforcement from a couple of recent encounters. That could be a factor. It may be unrelated. Right now, the FBI is sending a team from the Savannah Resident Agency to meet with Army CID, Criminal Investigative Division, to work on a joint investigation to peel back what do they have in terms of witnesses, what do they have in terms of who knows what the motive may have been, and what, if anything, the suspect is saying since he is in custody.
And speaking to that, Chief Ramsey, talk to us about the process of now trying to extract information from this individual, and also what you make of the fact that he was known to law enforcement, even though John makes clear that it's not certain at this moment whether it was related to the shooting or not.
Well, as far as the individual goes who's in custody now, the sergeant, depending on whether or not, I don't know if John knows this or not. I know he's in custody, but was he injured at all during the arrest? Is he willing to talk? Because he does have Fifth Amendment rights where he may not talk, but they certainly will be interrogating him to try to find out more about him, the motive, and so forth. Previous contact with police, under what circumstances? How did that happen? What was going on at that particular time? You know, there's still a lot of questions in the general raised as to how he actually had access to a firearm. You know, I would presume, since it sounds like he lives on the base, but how did he get access to a firearm? What kind of firearm did he have? Where exactly did this take place? When you played the tape from the 911 call, I'll call it, but the emergency center, and they were dispatching the medics, and they said that the area where the wounded were was secured. Well, that tells me that it's either a warm zone where they were able to get in there and actually provide some emergency medical, or he left that area after the shooting and he was apprehended somewhere else. So there's a lot of information that we don't have right now, but I'm sure at 3:30 we're going to get filled in with a lot of detail. And John, you've done a great job in providing us with a lot of information that we probably would not otherwise have had.
Yeah, and let's just ask John before we get in a quick break here. Do we know anything, John, about the physical condition of the suspected shooter here?
So we don't know if he was wounded or injured in this, but that he is in custody and that he is not among the fatalities as far as we are told. And again, we're at a preliminary stage here, even still, because, you know, right now, until the FBI gets on the scene and takes over the law enforcement function, the people in charge on the ground are local law enforcement and the military, and it's they've been fairly guarded about things like number of victims and their specific conditions.
Let's bring in Al Williams. He's a Georgia state representative who represents that area, Liberty County, which is where part of Fort Stewart is. And talk to us a little bit, if you wouldn't, Representative, and we're incredibly sorry for what your community is going through. Talk to us a little bit about what you're learning and what you're thinking as you're finding out that the suspected shooter is an Army sergeant.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Our prayers, my prayers, and the prayers of those who live in this district goes out to the family and the families that are involved. And certainly we're very disturbed by this. The 2nd Armored Brigade is one of the leading fighting brigades in the Army, and they train. But it's very obvious that the Army was very prepared for the situation this morning by their quick action. The Liberty County Sheriff's Office and Hinesville Police assisted. But we've heard that there, of course, 5 people have been shot. We don't know the seriousness of their injuries. We do know that 2 have been transported to Savannah for a level 1 hospital over there. We also know that the shooter was a sergeant. This is heartbreaking. I mean, these are the folks that protect us. And so we're heartbroken by that. But this community is very military oriented. We have the highest percentage of military connected citizens in the entire state of Georgia, between retirees, those that are on active duty, and the families and spouses. So it affects us. And so many of them live out, so there are relationships here. But we thank the Army for the swiftness of their actions to capture this person. In less than an hour, all of this was done. This is the way the Army operates here. And when you hit a fort like Fort Stewart, it's not long before the wrath falls.
Yeah. Representative, I wonder, I just want to clarify something that we heard you say. Were victims that you're aware of transferred to Savannah?
Yes, I'm aware of 2 victims transferred to Savannah. And I speculate that that's because of the nature of the injuries, because that's a level 1 trauma center when you go to Memorial Hospital in Savannah. And there have been 2 transferred over there.
And so 3, to your knowledge, were not transferred. Is that right?
To my knowledge, 3 were not transferred but treated at Wynn Army Hospital. We're not certain whether they were admitted or not, but they were treated first on scene, then transported to Wynn Army Hospital.
Yeah, that is important information to keep in mind as we try to gather the latest details on the status of these 5 soldiers who were shot. Representative, I wonder if you could paint a picture for us of what this community that you represent is like, and specifically its relationship with Fort Stewart.
Well, I've lived here all my life. Fort Stewart became a fort in 1941 and became a big part of this community, as well as neighboring communities in Bryan County and Savannah, of course. The Army is involved in just about everything we do, because there's so many people that live here in my district that are active duty, and we train National Guardsmen from all over the state and from all over the South, really. So this community has the highest income from military presence of any fort or post in Georgia. Everything here is Fort Stewart, about 70% connectivity between the citizenry. So we're all shocked, we're heartbroken, and we're hurt because of the great cooperation between this district and Fort Stewart. And we just changed command, so this is a new commanding general and a new garrison commander, but they hit the ground running, and I'm sure as smooth as it went, there were just no gaps in what needs to be done out there. And we're grateful to know that our soldiers are protected like that, those who protect us, that we care so much about. They're first in battle. My people have been deployed so much since the Iraqi war. There's so many times, and they do it. And to come home after surviving the terrors of war, to come home and be shot, not just shot, but by a fellow soldier, disheartening, is really an understatement.
Yeah, they're to protect each other, and the fact that this is played out as law enforcement is describing it this way is heartbreaking. Representative Williams, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your perspective as you represent the area there that Fort Stewart is on. Ty Sidgley is back with us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General, and General, even before we found out the identity of the suspected shooter here, we were asking questions about if it might be an active duty soldier, service member, because so often it is. When you look back at these shootings on military installations, it is almost always an active duty service member or a military contractor.
Yeah, I mean, the Army has nearly 500,000 active duty, and that's not including reservists and National Guard. There's a lot of people, and there are a lot of young men. If we think about who the majority of people that do these incidents, they're young men, and the Army just has so many of them. And it is crushing, though, to think about this about Fort Stewart, because they have had so many difficult incidents recently, and to think about this one where you have one of your own, where you have a leader that perpetrates this kind of atrocity against his own people, it's both heartbreaking and infuriating, because we know that this is going to hurt that unit. It's going to hurt everybody, not just the 5, but it's going to destroy morale in that whole unit. And just as we just heard, it's going to take that new command team an enormous amount of energy to get them back and ready, because I'm not sure where 2nd Brigade is going next, but remember, they are always getting ready to go one of 3 places, either Eastern Europe, Korea, or Kuwait. They do 9-month deployments, then come back and get ready to go again. It's a tough time to be at Fort Stewart, and this just makes it harder.